worried about your life, though, for a while there, weren't you?
Yeah, that was one of the reasons to come on and, let everything out on the air. It's a level of insurance.
Well, let's look at some of the technology you saw. Now, when did you first get the idea? What's the first thing you saw that made you convinced that it's not from here?
The first thing with hands-on experience was the antimatter reactor.
Hey guys, it's Grimmzy here, and today I have quite the extraordinary vid for you today. We're going to talk about an amazing individual. To summarize him, I'm going to go ahead and say he has both brains and bronze. And I feel you'll only understand the brains in the beginning and the bronze in the end. Today, we're going to be talking about the one, the only, Bob Lazar. So this mighty individual has quite the story. I'm going to summarize it a little bit, okay? And then we'll get to the meaty core. So the early years of Bob Lazar, formerly known as Robert Scott Lazar, but don't worry about it. It's Bob Lazar. He was born on January 26th, 1959. Damn. In the Coral Gables of Florida, and even as a kid, you could tell he was different. So being that this man is not just a tinkering man, in time, in his teens, he made jet bikes. Now, when I say, jet bikes, I don't mean a little four-cylinder on a bike. No, I mean like a whole ass jet on a bike. He would literally take them apart, figure them out, and improve them. He was a true testament to ingenuity and obviously a need for speed, but let's get to that. When Bob Lazar was in his, I believe, 18 to like 20 years old, he made a jet car out of a humble Honda CRX. Dude, oh my God, who is this guy? Honestly, that's the first thing that grabbed my attention, was that he took a Honda and put a fucking jet engine in it. What a unquenchable thirst for innovation. So at this point in time, we now know Bob Lazar is a propulsion expert. And in time, he went ahead and got his master's at MIT and Caltech, which is pretty insane. Now, when I hear college, I think, whatever. But when I hear like a physicist or someone who gained their master's, I was like, oh, okay. So after gaining the headline in the newspaper for making a fucking jet Honda, so that is so cool, man. I'm gonna do that to my Challenger. He had an old friend of his literally holding the newspaper, reading it, and practically offered him a job. So of course, Bob Lazar takes the job. I mean, this guy wants the shmoney, big shmoney. Bob Lazar ends up moving to Las Vegas. Now, Bob Lazar took this job knowing it was some sort of, somewhat secret, but nothing too crazy.
Sort of job description, what you were applying for?
They said it was for I can't remember exactly what they did. This was a long time ago, but I think it was advanced propulsion or something like that. Something relatively generic, and they said it's in a remote area. It's going to be some days on, some days off, and it was kind of not exactly a full-time job, but you might have to be out there for 2 weeks at a time and take 2 weeks off. So it was kind of the work schedule would be kind of broken up.
Now keep in mind, this is back in 1982. So the government didn't really say anything about Area 51 until 2013. Exactly in Area 51, but he was in a sub-compound area called S4.
Just over this ridge, tucked inside the test tubes of a hidden government base, the secrets of the universe may be unfolding. The area is designated S4, and according to one man who claims to have worked there, S4 harbors scientific achievements that would astonish our deepest thinkers. It is technology that, if it exists, could change the world, but is allegedly bottled up by military minds.
No, it's not an overall government project. It's not something that Congress appropriates money for. $2 billion is for this, $15 billion for flying saucers, $8 billion for Star Wars. It doesn't go like that. I don't believe that they have any knowledge of it at all.
And this is just another reason to believe Bob Lazar, because no one was talking about Area 51. No one knew it existed until Bob Lazar.
the first day, really, I didn't really get to see a whole lot. The first day was essentially just paperwork. That's when I flew into Area 51 proper. And I left McCarran Airport and flew what they call the Janet flights. Just, you know, a passenger plane from Las Vegas to Area 51. And it was really just going through a mountain of paperwork that day, from security clearances to, God, it was like 2 or 3 hours of just solid paperwork. And that was really an uneventful first day.
You know, the casual, don't tell your wife, don't tell your friends, don't tell anyone. And he doesn't know what's going on. He's just here for propulsion. So the second day rolls around, and that's when shit gets weird. I'm going to go ahead and let Bob Lazar speak for himself on the Joe Rogan podcast. By the way, you should check it out. It's a really great video. It's just really long.
The first inkling I had was when I came in. There's this facility that is at S4. It's in the side of a mountain. And normally we had pulled in with the bus and gone around the front through a normal double door. This time that I went in, there were hangar doors open. I went in through the hangar door, and in the hangar door was the disc, the flying saucer that I worked on. I saw it sitting there, and we walked by it. It had a little American flag stuck on the side, and I thought, oh my God, this finally explains all the flying saucer stories. This is just an advanced fighter, and this is fucking hilarious.
Right.
So I went by, I slid my hand alongside it. I got reprimanded immediately for touching the thing. And there was a guy, an armed guard, that followed us in and just said, keep your eyes forward and your hands at your side and just walk in the door. So that was the first time I had seen anything that was weird. It was some time later that I was introduced to my my lab partner, Barry, and we had some of the subcomponents of the craft in the lab, and Barry was very anxious to get a new lab partner, so he was very talkative and couldn't wait to show me different things. And it was in the demonstration of the reactor working where it caught my attention to where this is technology that doesn't even exist. So, I mean, that was the first time I knew that this is really something different.
So there is a lot to unpack there, for sure. We're going to go one at a time, okay? Let's start with Barry. So as you heard, Barry is one of Bob Lazar's partners. Now remember, they could only be in partners of two, and they would feed them different information so that if anyone leaked anything, they would know who it was. So you have all these partners of two with different information working on different things.
I didn't know at the time. I mean, I was reading, I thought, is this some kind of test?
See if you're crazy.
Well, not to see if I'm crazy, to, you know, a lot of times they'll take in real high security jobs. I mean, they'll intentionally insert nonsense into them, whether it's to confuse the fact or if for someone was to leak it out, they would carry that information along and know where it came from. So I read through the documents, but, you know, I didn't know if this was, you know, part of some kind of test or, you know, or what, or was it potentially realistic? I mean, I really didn't consider it being all that possible as far as being the actual thing that I was going to work on at the time. Went in with Barry and had hands-on experience with what they were talking about. It took on a completely different meaning.
So there's a plate, there's this thing that looks like a half a basketball, and when it's on, you can't come anywhere near it. You can't touch it.
Right. The first thing with hands-on experience was the antimatter reactor.
And explain what that is and how it works and what it does.
It's a plate, about 18 inches in diameter with a sphere on top.
I think we have some tape of it, a tape of a model that a friend of yours made. If we want to roll that, you can maybe narrate along. There it is.
Okay, inside that tower is a chip of element 115 they just put in there. That's a super heavy element. The lid goes on top, and as far as any other of the workings of it, I really don't know. You know, what's inside the bottom of it. The 115 sets up a gravitational field around the top. That little waveguide you saw being put on the top, that essentially siphons off the gravity wave, and that's
later amplified in the lower portion of the craft. But just in general, the whole technology is virtually unknown.
How is what is gravity about that? Like the concept of gravity to most people is gravity is bringing something towards it.
Right. Well, I guess you would say it's anti-gravity. It's gravity shifted 180 degrees. It's anti-gravity.
And he's been harassed this entire time, keeping a straight, narrow story, not messing it up. He's not a rich man. He's not flying around in some jet and whipping around a damn Lambo. And it's blatantly obvious he gets very nervous during interviews.
Floored by seeing all this
Oh,
stuff.
I was. I mean, that's why I'm kind of laughing about it now, because it must sound ridiculous to everyone, but it's just phenomenal. I mean, this is really alien technology.
Like I said, he stayed very consistent, and he talked about element 115.
About the 115, we talked a little bit about it in the series of reports. Explain what it is again and why you believe it could not be manufactured here.
Okay, it's a super heavy element, meaning that on the periodic chart, which lists all the elements found on Earth and that can be synthesized, it's, I think the highest element we've synthesized has been about element 106. Now from 103, or actually anything higher than plutonium up, the half-life begins to drop. In other words, the element disintegrates. When you get up to element 106, it's only around for a very small amount of time. Even science today theorizes that up around element 113 to 116, somewhere in there, they should again become stable. This is in fact true. That's what element 115 is. It's a stable element. To synthesize it would be impossible. The way we synthesize heavy elements is we take a stable element like bismuth or something like that, or plutonium, whatever, put it in an accelerator and bombard it with protons. Essentially what you're trying to do is plug in protons into the atoms and increase the atomic number. To do that to the level of element 115 would just take an infinite amount of power and an infinite amount of time.
What kinds of things, what capabilities would a heavy element like this have? I mean, other than producing power. Obviously it can produce a lot of power, right?
Well, it in itself is not antimatter. It just has a unique property of producing it. Any of the other basic properties it has, I really don't know of. But using just the antimatter producing property, the potential for a weapon is staggering, is absolutely staggering.
Like what? I mean, a pound of it, what could it do?
Well, 2.2 pounds is the energy equivalent of 47 10-megaton hydrogen bombs. I mean, it's a good bang, and a pound of a super heavy element is, maybe the size of a plum or something like that.
I guess
I briefly showed you some clips about him talking about element 115. I'm going to do my best to break it down to you so you could understand. Bob Lazar was partnered with Barry. Him and Barry were working on this alien tech, right? This gravity generator. We'll talk more about that later. Hold on. Inside the ball is element 115, a little shard of it, okay? This element he's been talking about since, I believe, the 1990s. Obviously, this wasn't on the periodic table, so no one knew about it. Everyone's like, what the fuck? In Russia, they came out and said that they just discovered element 115. Bob Lazar was the first to talk about it. He's the first one to ever mention element 115. And yes, it's the same exact element. And he is the first to talk about Area 51, which no one knew about. No one knew about Area 51. Nobody knew. But he was the one talking about it. Now this is a serious element, 115. Hey guys, so while I was editing, I happened to find footage of element 115, and I thought, check it out. Fair warning, it is very hard to see. This is in Bob Lazar's garage. Of course, this guy's made jet cars. Look at him now. This is not a whole laboratory. He doesn't have everything he needs. This is a very minute and hard to see thing. Let's check it out. Okay, look carefully. So he's going to be using a vapor machine to give the field a physical image. Right there. It's very hard to see. There it is again. And then one more time. See here, it's kind of more difficult to see. There's the vapor or smoke machine that he was using to create the physical image, because how else would you see it? And so as I was editing this video, I came to a place where I can't really explain everything and show you everything that happened to Bob Lazar. There's so much more that you don't know and that you should know about as well, because his story deserves to be told. I highly suggest that you go and watch at least the documentary and Joe Rogan's podcast. They give you the fine details, and it's really a good watch on its own. But before you go, I just wanted to say, I do have another video coming out about Skinwalker Ranch. The only way you're gonna know about that is if you subscribe. It would mean a lot. I'm getting up there in numbers. I'm pretty happy about it. Feel free to leave a like and comment down below if you even believe Bob Lazar. Debate about it. Send proof. Talk about it. If there's anything that I left out, I'm sure I left out quite a bit. I apologize. Go watch the documentary, watch the podcast. I'll leave the link below. Have a good one. And as always, good game and good night.
The first thing with hands-on experience was the antimatter reactor.